Hi, welcome to my channel, Mostly Knitting. I'm Tash, and this is a podcast where I talk mostly about the knitting that I've been doing, and I also put out regular tutorials. So it's Thursday the 22nd of May, and I'm recording from a very rainy Sydney, Australia. I just have the one finished object this episode, and I'm wearing it. This is the Elisabeth Blouse by Petite knit, and I knit it out of the recommended yarn, which is CARDIFF CASHMERE Classic, and this is the colour 517 Air May. This yarn was gifted to me by CARDIFF CASHMERE as part of a collaboration with Yarnacopia, and CARDIFF CASHMERE is available for purchase at Yarnacopia until the end of May. So it's the 22nd now, so for about the next 9 or so days you can purchase the CARDIFF CASHMERE yarn from Yarnacopia, and I'll put a link in the description below to the website. So I finished this actually just I think yesterday, and I blocked it overnight and it dried. I had a fan going on it. This weighs 240 grams, so just under 10 skeins. I knit the smallest size, which is the 35.5 inch bust size. I did go down two needle sizes to get gauge. I knit it on a 3.5 millimeter needle. I think my gauge might have been a tiny bit smaller than the 23 stitches because it's turned out 34 inch bust. So maybe my gauge might have been around 23.5, but pretty close. So a 34 inch bust for me is 2 inches of positive ease. I knit it to pattern. Pretty much the whole thing to pattern, but one thing I will say is because I used a smaller needle, my row gauge was a little bit smaller, so I was getting about 9 rows over an inch instead of 8, and so as a result the V neck is just a little bit higher on me, but it's still like a very, quite a reasonably deep V neck for a top, but it's just not sort of down here, which is preferable for me. So I'm actually I didn't make any modifications to raise this. That just came about because of my shorter row gauge. So I'll just show you. So this is 2 inches of positive ease for me. I knit it to, it's about 12 inches from the underarm to the hem, about 17 inches for the sleeves, and the ribbing, I can't remember what the pattern said. I think I did about the pattern, which was 2 inches for the cuffs here, maybe 2.25, and I did just exactly the same on the bottom of the sweater. I think it's meant to be about an extra 1/2 inch, but I was quite happy with that amount. I'll just stand back and show you. For my Me Made challenge, where I'm wearing something each day and talking about it, I wore this today to work, but these pants are just commercial pants, so like just purchase pants. So this is the only handmade item that I wore today. But yeah, it's obviously got a really lovely collar, very clever design, where you start with Judy's Magic Cast On, you knit the collar, there's some double knit sections here. I feel like this is pulling just a little bit because of the weight of the collar, but I don't think you can really avoid that. I think that's just what's going to happen, and I'm fine with it. I've actually felt like I was lovely. It's so soft, it's beautiful. Like I'm just wearing this over a bra. It's I don't feel like I need. I certainly don't need anything else under my skin, but it's lovely and breathable and warm, but not hot. So, as I work in air conditioning, even though it's cold today, the rooms are all heated, but I was perfectly comfortable. I can just push the sleeves up a little bit if I need. One thing I will mention is I did do the ribbing. I'll just show you the ribbing. It's a little bit tidier because I knit the ribbing inside out. So I'll put in the description below, I'll put a link to a tutorial for how to do that. You just do a German short row and then knit the ribbing inside out. And then when it comes to I did do a tubular bind off. When it comes to the 2 setup rows, I don't know if it matters, but normally if you're knitting right side out, you'd knit the knits first, slip the purls, and then vice versa. I just did it in reverse order. I purled the purls first, slipped the knits, and then knit the knits, slip the purls. I don't know if it matters or not. And I just did this, I guess, what do you call it, the tubular bind off in the same way I was knitting. I didn't turn and come back again for the final 2 rows and the tubular bind off, so which you do with a needle anyway. So, but I just wanted to say, I don't know if it matters or not, but I did do that. So yeah, that's it. I don't think I have anything else to say except it's really, really lovely. It's definitely a luxury knit, being 100% cashmere, but beautiful and cozy, and yeah, it's a special knit. I'm not going to knit everything with cashmere, although my new cast on is also a cashmere silk blend from CARDIFF CASHMERE, but that's not going to be my regular knitting. But it's a lovely, it was really nice to knit with, and obviously beautiful to wear for a special item. So I have one finished object and one new cast on. So moving on to my works in progress, I'll start with my new cast on. This is the CP05 V Neck by Christina Ghirlanda, who is Minimi Knit Design. And I'm knitting this out of some other yarn that was gifted to me as part of this collaboration by CARDIFF. And this is the Prime yarn, which is their new base, which is a cashmere and silk blend. And it is so lovely. I knit this holding it with the Cardiff Cashmere Light, no, small, held together with this for a Sophie shawl that I gifted to my friend. So I knit that quite recently. I'll put a link in the description to the podcast where I talked about that. And those two yarns together for the Sophie shawl were beautiful. Really, really nice combination. This time I'm holding it double for this pattern because it is meant to be with this kind of lace weight yarn held double. That's just the design. It's meant to be very soft and ethereal. It's got a really lovely deep V neck with a twisted rib on the V neck. I was debating in terms of what size to cast on because I wasn't sure, like my gauge is a bit tighter. I knit it on a range of different needle sizes and I really liked it best on the 5mm needle, but the gauge is 19 stitches, whereas the gauge for this pattern is 16 stitches. So I was umming and ahhing about what size to cast on, but the first three sizes all start from the majority of it pretty much the same way. So I ended up just deciding to cast on for the size 1, and because it did feel like quite a large V-neck, so I thought, look, I'm just going to make it just that tiny bit smaller anyway, like sort of quite a large wide neckline. I haven't really done, I only cast this on yesterday. It was my birthday on Tuesday, and I was going to cast it on Tuesday, but I ran out of time, too busy doing other stuff, so I started this yesterday. So this is 1 day's worth of knitting, and I'm just working down the raglan increases, and then eventually there'll be, obviously it looks kind of crazy over this red, but you can see that it's obviously very see-through and light and airy, but it is beautiful. It's meant to be the design. It kind of reminds me of like the ranunculus, where you're knitting on a very large needle, although my ranunculi, I knit on 6mm needles. This is on a 5mm, so it's just a little bit I don't know if dense is the right word. This obviously isn't dense, but less open. It's got a lot of fluff, so that I haven't blocked this yet, but it will sort of fill in. One thing that's quite interesting with the increases in this pattern, with the raglan increases, the way I'm used to doing raglan increases is the first one, usually after a marker, is usually a make one left, and then the one at the end is usually a make one right. And for this pattern, they're reversed. I don't know why, but I'm just going with it. I'm just doing what the pattern says. So but I just found that interesting. They're angled the other way. As long as you do it consistently, it doesn't really matter. But that I'm having to pay a lot of attention every time I come to a raglan increase, because for I don't know how many raglan sweaters I've made where they're pretty much always, just before the marker is a make one right, just after the marker is a make one left, and then when I mentally have to go other way, other way, other way. It's kind of like when you get into a car when the indicators are on the other side and you have to keep saying to yourself, don't turn on the windscreen wipers. So that's kind of an unusual thing about this pattern, but it's nice to knit with a design from a pattern designer that I've not knit before. And in terms of the, what am I doing for modifications to make sure I get the right size, I do want this to end up about 35 inches. And if my gauge stays true over 19 stitches, if I do 19 divided by 4, that's my number of stitches per inch, times 35, the number of inches I want, that's about 166 stitches. So that's where I want to end up for the body. But I'll make a final decision on that after I've got a lot of fabric on the needles and I block it and see if it still stays at 19 stitches. And if it does, I'll work towards 166 stitches for the body, and whether that means through raglan increases or casting on stitches under the arms, that will kind of be my goal for the body. So I'm still working back and forth for a while because of such a deep V. So that's my first, or my only new cast on, and I have 5 other works in progress. No particular order for my 5 remaining works in progress, just the first one that I grabbed. This is the Eva Cardigan by Petite Knit, and I've shown this before. I can't remember where I was last time, but I certainly have split off I've split the sleeves off, and I'm working down the body, and I've just started I'm knitting this out of Madeline Tosh Alpaca Sport in the colourway Sea Glass. This is all I've got left of the second skein, and I'm just alternating in a third skein, but I'm going to keep some of this to alternate in for the sleeves. The reason this hasn't got as much progress, obviously I was working on this, but also I just wanted to record as I was alternating in skeins. It's not that interesting when I'm alternating skeins on the body because this is a cardigan and I'll be picking up stitches for the button band. I'm just naturally alternating on the end. If this was a sweater, I would be alternating underneath the sleeve, at this part of the body, but seeing it's back and forth, I get to alternate on the end, seeing I'm going to be picking up stitches there anyway. But then I'll make sure I do a recording of how I alternate the skeins when I get to the sleeves, because and I'm definitely not alternating all the way down. I sort of alternate in when I transition to a new ball. But obviously under the sleeves that I will be knitting that in the round, so I'll just show what I do there, and I'll just record all of those and then just release it as one video once they're done. So that is it's really lovely though. This is such a lovely yarn. It will look crazy if I put it on over my red. I'll look very Christmassy, but I've just knitted onto a large needle so I could kind of show it. Oh gosh, yeah, okay, I am all caught up in the yarn. Let's just see. So, yeah, I mean, it's going to be pretty oversized. That raglan depth seems, obviously I'm putting it on over another sweater over a sweater, but yep, I think it's going to be fine. That raglan depth seems deep enough, and it's definitely going to be big enough because I've still got to pick up quite a wide button band, so it will be quite nice and oversized, even though I think my gauge is tighter. Like, I'm knitting the smallest size. My gauge on this yarn with this needle is about 22 stitches over 4 inches, whereas the pattern gauge is 20, so I'm expecting mine to be about a 10% bust decrease. But yeah, I don't think there'll be any problems with... I think I was showing, in my Me-Made videos, I was showing a cardigan that was really quite fitted, and the button band was just pulling a little bit. There's not going to be any problem with this one. There won't be any pulling. It will definitely sit. It's going to be fun picking buttons for this, actually. Yes, that will be like probably a little excursion into Newtown, where we've got like a really nice little button shop when I get to that point. My next work in progress is the Jules Genser by Sandnes Garn, and I'm knitting that out of Knitting for Olive soft silk mohair in the colourway Elderflower, which is this really lovely soft yellow colour. And I'm knitting this joining in with the Butter Yellow Knit Along with Liz and Paige and Jessica and Rachel from Those Twins Who Knit. And I've actually, that's the back there, I've done, that's chart A. Chart B is finished, and I had to redo it because I had forgotten to do the increases. And I've just started chart C. So I've almost finished the first ball. I've got 5 balls. I think it'll probably take just over 4. So I'm pretty close to a quarter of the way. But in terms of the actual time invested, I think I'm more than a quarter of the way, because after I've finished chart C, it's pretty much just stockinette in the round. So that should be quite quick. I don't know if you can hear the rain in the background. It has just barely stopped raining for the last week or two. Anyway, good knitting weather. So chart C at the moment, one thing I noticed with chart C is at a certain point, not the very first part of the round, but for quite a few sections, you've got a centered double decrease as the first stitch in the round. And you have to be quite careful when that happens, because you actually have to take you know how with a centered double decrease, you usually slip one, depending on how it is, you might slip 2, but this particular one, you slip 1, knit 2 together, pass a slip stitch over. If it's the start of round, you actually have to take the stitch from the last stitch from the previous round, and that's your slip 1. So you do actually have to move the markers. You do have to be a little bit careful. My encouragement there is to make sure, if that ever happens, to look further along in the chart and look down below and see what's meant to be sitting on top of what. So here I had this decrease, and it was definitely meant to be a knit above that, and then the yarn over, which doesn't take a stitch, and then count 1, 2, 3. Okay, there's my decrease. Oh, the decrease uses 3 stitches. That's actually going to need the stitch from before the marker, so the last stitch of the round is the one that you have to slip. It won't always be that way. You just have to really pay attention to the, like, really look at the chart, and there's nothing in the pattern that sort of gives you a heads up to look out for that. So yeah, so I just wanted to mention that you have to be a little bit careful with chart knitting. The visual is meant to things are meant to sit on top of each other, but sometimes with a double decrease, because it's sitting in one box, but one box represents 3 stitches, and yarn overs don't come from another stitch below. I don't know if I'm making sense, but hopefully if you've ever experienced this, you do have to be careful sometimes when you've got a decrease at the very start, particularly like a centre double decrease where you've got to slip a stitch. You may have to, that slip stitch may be the one before the marker, if it's the first stitch. Anyway, hopefully that made sense. It's just something to be alert to. If you're going to knit this pattern, just look out for that in chart C. Yep, I think that's it for that one. Just the next one to grab. This is the 2x2 hat by Anne Gagnon, which is a free pattern, and I'm knitting that out of Madeline Tosh 80-10-10 DK in the colorway Rainwater, and I've knit to 8.5 inches, and I'm at the point where I've just popped some markers in and I'm about to start doing the decreases. I've weighed my yarn just so that I can keep an eye on. I don't know that I've done that in my previous versions of this. I've knit this a few times before. I just want to at least look out for this yarn, how much yarn does the decreases take. I've got a way of estimating that, a little formula for estimating it, but you know, I think it's always nice for me to actually record it and write it down. So that's where I'm up to. I also remember from having knit this before that I need to pay attention to making sure that the my markers are all in the right spot for the decreases, because I remember doing it with this pattern and not paying attention, and all my decreases were off, and it took me probably about 6 or 7 rows before I realized and then had to rip back. So I am learning my lesson. Read the pattern, particularly at a pressure point when something is changing or something might be changing. Just go back and check the pattern. So yep, that's it. I've just got 2 more works in progress to show. This one here is the Adamson vest. Now I'm knitting this out. This is by Rui Yamamuro, and I'm knitting it out of the recommended yarn, which is Woolfolk 2, and I'm knitting size 1, which is a 34.5 inch bust. My gauge seemed quite a bit bigger. My gauge was, that's meant, pattern gauge with this recommended yarn on a 4mm needle is meant to be 19, so I'll show you nice and close. Very fluffy, very odd kind of yarn, which I'm not a fan of. I definitely won't be buying it again. I just don't enjoy knitting with it, and it's kind of an odd, like, I think I'll enjoy the end result, but it's just a bit, yeah, it's a little bit unusual. And you know, if you don't enjoy the process and you're not completely wowed by the result, it is nice and soft though. That is one thing I will say about it. Anyway, the gauge is meant to be 19 stitches over 4 inches. I'm getting 7, well, at least on my swatch I was getting 17. I probably need to block it again. It's quite an unusual vest pattern. You actually do these eyelets. It's got a deep V. Because of my gauge difference, I dropped off the last 2 raglan increases, but then just did 4 more rows because I wanted the depth. Although it does look huge, but of course I do need to pick up for the arm bands. What are they called? I don't know. You know what I mean. The cuffs, the bands, and also for the neckline. So I've just put it. I've done the recommended. I think it's 2.5 maybe inches of ribbing. So with this design here, you actually it actually decreases down, so it's very like there's natural shaping. I've got way less stitches here than I did here, so through these like eyelets you end up reducing down, so it's meant to kind of really, I guess, be quite cropped. I think the way I'll wear this, I have this black sleeveless dress that I think, and I think the model is wearing it over like that kind of sort of like a dress. Then the cropped issue won't matter so much, because if it's over a dress, it's just going to naturally sit in nicely around your smallest part, around your waist, so it'll sort of naturally bring it in a little bit, and then you don't have to worry about, oh, are my pants high enough or whatever. Yeah, and then it will just be like a little extra kind of warmth over a dress. So I'm almost positive, so this is all that I've got left of the second ball, and then this is the third ball. So I've got plenty of yarn to do. So I'm just going to leave this attached. I'll do the neckband and the armhole ribbing next. This will almost certainly, they're actually quite narrow ribbing. That will almost certainly be done by next week, and that will be a faux and I'll have it on. I'll try it on over the black dress and see how that looks. But and I think I will actually wear it. But yeah, I can't see myself buying the yarn again. Anyway, that's and the last work in progress. Let me just flash in front of the camera because I haven't done anything on it. Is the Comfort Core Socks by, I think I've maybe done 2 rows on it. Comfort Core Socks by Summer Lee, and I think I'm almost at the point. I think that's probably why I've stalled for a little bit, because I just need to check whether I'm at the point where I need to start. This is the Comfort Core Socks, have this kind of interesting seed stitch on the top. They're meant to sort of mimic like athletic socks. And then I'm about to do the ribbing, which for the kind of like the arch support ribbing. I don't know if it's actually going to do anything like arch support, but it should pull in at least. And you sort of have to put it on over your foot to sort of see where the arch sort of starts. I think I'm almost at that point, and then you do that for a little while. But honestly, there's not that much to go, is there, right? I don't have huge feet. Sneakers, I wear a US 9, and that's 64 stitches. Just looks so crazy small, doesn't it? But it's pretty stretchy, and it does fit. I have tried it on. So I don't knit a lot of top-down socks, but I'm not wedded to any method. Whatever the pattern is, that's what I'll do. So I think that's it for my works in progress. Moving on to my acquisitions and plans. Since I last recorded, I purchased 2 patterns. One was the Cumulus blouse. I don't think it's called V-neck, it's just Cumulus blouse, and it's one that has the V-neck, it's just not the O-neck version. And I had planned to make that using this Cardiff Cashmere Prime, but then I saw the CP05 V Neck, and I thought, I actually think I really like that twisted rib V-neck for this yarn a little more than the I-cord edging. Even though they're both V-necks, I just thought this would look prettier and really ethereal. And I think, maybe it was the colour as well that drew me. Anyway, I purchased that, the CP05 V-neck, and I've obviously already cast that on, but I have bought the Cumulus blouse, and I'm sure I will make it at some point, but perhaps out of a just a silk mohair held together in a more sort of relaxed style, whereas this one here, I just wanted this to be a little bit a bit special and elegant and elevated. So, for a really lovely yarn. So they're the 2 patterns that I purchased myself. I was also gifted some patterns by some lovely viewers, so I just wanted to mention those, partly for my birthday or partly just as a thank you for the podcast. So the first pattern I wanted to share is the texture vest by Isager, and this one's a really lovely, interesting short sleeve, I guess a vest is short sleeve, but it's actually a button-up vest with a collar, and that's actually got a 14 stitch gauge, so I'd have to have a little think about what yarn. That's pretty bulky, but yeah, it looks like a really interesting design, and yeah, just very cool over some pants or something. I could see myself wearing that, but I'd have to look for some yarn. So Paula gifted me that, so thank you so much, Paula. Another pattern that was gifted to me was gifted by Hanne, and that's the Karla cape by Anne Ventzel. And this is a really lovely sort of, it says a cape, but it looks a bit more like a cardigan, but with a very sort of deep, what do you call it, like a deep arm side. It is colourwork, and it's knit flat, so this might be one where I would consider steeking, because I would not want to knit. I don't mind, there's the porcelain sweater, which has colourwork where for a part of, or the sole blouse, where part of it you knit flat, but then the rest of it, once you're past the yoke section, then you knit it in the round. I could probably deal with that, but doing the whole thing, colour work back and forth, this is one I imagine I would consider steeking for, but looks like a really lovely pattern. That one's got a 16 stitch gauge, so again, I'd have to be looking for yarn for that one, but yeah, really a beautiful one. That one uses let me see, Tavini and Isager soft, so like a worsted and a lace weight held together to get the 16 stitch gauge. So thank you very much, Hanne. Another pattern that was actually 2 patterns that were gifted to me by Sue. One was the Ilana camisole, and that's by Masha Zyablikova, and this one is a really lovely camisole. It's got a V-neck. It's got a 20 stitch gauge in a cable design, and it looks like that would work quite well for something like knitting for olive pure silk or the cotton merino. So that one looks really lovely. And Sue generously gifted me that pattern and the ruffle socks by Petite Knit, which they are so cute. I've been eyeing them off for ages. And one of the reasons that I haven't purchased this pattern is mainly because I just don't have yarn for this, which seems crazy because it's just sock yarn. But I can only really see myself knitting this in a solid colour or a semi-solid colour. And probably in that kind of cream or some other sort of fairly neutral. And most of my sock yarn is either striping or quite variegated or just wouldn't look good with this. So I actually do need to buy some yarn. Well, but I wouldn't just use stash yarn just to match pattern and yarn and whatever, just to make it work. I'd like to intentionally buy. So the yarn for this is meant to be Filcolana Awera. And yeah, I mean, that would be nice. Maybe I will purchase that. Not sure where from yet. I have to do a bit of searching. But yes, so they're two patterns that were gifted to me by Sue. So thank you so much, Sue. And two others actually, because it was my birthday. So I guess that, people wanted to do something nice, but I'm just so grateful that you guys are here and commenting and being so encouraging. I got so many lovely birthday messages on my Vlogmas day 20, which was my birthday. So yeah, it just feels very special. I really love the community aspect of this. But I did want to mention these are the patterns that were gifted to me and say thank you, and also mention that these are now in my library. One that was gifted to me by Vivian is the Pyramid Light, and that's by Minimi Knit Design, who is this is Christina, what's her last name? I just want to get it right. Christina, sorry, I'm looking down at my notes. Ghirlanda, I don't know if that's how you say it, but Christina Ghirlanda, who is Minimi Knits Design. She designed the CP05 V Neck that I've just started, and she also designed the Pyramid Light. So this was gifted to me by Vivian. This is an interesting one actually, because it's got a DK, it says it's a DK yarn knit at 21 stitch gauge, but it's Barocco Remix Light, and 100 grams is 395 meters. So knitting that at a 21 stitch gauge, it just seems very on 3.5 millimeter needles. I don't have that yarn, but I'm just sort of wondering. Anyway, the way I'd like to knit this pattern is I see this like it's got a really interesting construction with this sort of sleeves coming down here, a central spine. I could see this as a dress. So I'm not sure that I would try to seek out this yarn. Like I've knit with the Barocco Remix, not the light version, but the regular version for my beatnik sweater. But I'm wondering if maybe the Pearl Soho linen quill could work, but that's definitely not DK yarn. So the gauge is kind of throwing me off a little bit. Yeah, I just have to, I want to make it, and I'm really glad I've got the pattern so I can properly read through it now and look at the schematics and everything, but trying to figure out a yarn is going to be an interesting one for that. And the last pattern that was gifted to me was the Paul cardigan by Moreca Knit, and that was gifted to me by Sam. And this cardigan, I really like the construction of this one. It looks really interesting. I'll just put a picture up there of what it looks like, and also the back. I just really like the kind of the back panel, like the way it's sort of constructed looks really interesting. So I'm really keen to make that. That's a little bit more of a sort of, it will be an easier pick for yarn. I think it's a 22 stitch gauge, and that's knit with like, I think, yes, I think, let me just see, the yarn that is recommended, sorry, I should have researched this before. It is, I think it's more like a standard sport plus lace equals DK, sort of more like your main sort of wool yarn with your silk mohair kind of held together. So that one should be a little bit easier, and yeah, it just looks like a really nice, and I am trying to knit more, wanting to knit more cardigans. So thank you very much, Sam. So that's some lovely new patterns in my library I've so many things I want to make. It's just like, which one next? But that one, I don't know. I'd have to have a look in my stash to see if I already have yarn. Otherwise that might be something to shop for. The other the one last acquisition is some yarn. I taught at Skein Sisters on the weekend. That's my local yarn store. I had a couple of classes on the Saturday, and I don't know what it was about this yarn. It just totally called to me. This is Skein Sisters, their fabulous sock in the colourway Just Beach. I am a bit of a sucker for sort of turquoise and orange, and I had a plan. I do try now, if I buy yarn, to have a plan for it. And I really wanted to make the Ripple Bralette by Jessie Made Designs. I'd probably see myself wearing it, maybe either making it longer or wearing it more like an under top, so not to wear out. I'd either make it full length and maybe have it like or have it underneath, but I know that it's really pretty and something really special underneath, or as a make it full length and have like a button up over it. So, colors are pretty crazy, but they just look like a lot of fun, and I wanted to make this, and theoretically it doesn't look like it uses a lot of yarn, particularly if you make it cropped, but I just couldn't quite find a yarn that I had in stash in figuring weight that was going to work for this. So I actually had quite a few choices there. There are a few speckly ones that were calling my eye, but this is the one that I settled on. So that is an acquisition and an upcoming plan. I haven't purchased that pattern yet, but it does look like a really pretty straightforward one, and I don't know if it's bottom up, or I think it might be bottom up. I'll have to have a look. But anyway, that's what that is for. So that they are my acquisitions for today's podcast. Moving on to what has caught my eye. This week, it's not patterns and it's not yarn. It's actually knitting retreats. So I mentioned last episode that the Myak was doing a knitting retreat in Venice with Sari Nordlund, and that it sold out in a couple of days. And so I started looking at other retreats, and I saw on YouTube that someone had been to an Isager yarn retreat. And of course, it was already over because she was doing a video on the retreat. And then I was like, oh, that sounds so cool. But then when I went to sort of their website, or whoever it had been run through, I think it was maybe called Oxford Yarn Company, or so, it was a yarn store that had sort of organised it. It didn't sound like there was another one. Even if there was another one next year, it wasn't sort of, dates hadn't been set, or it's so hard to know with knitting retreats. There isn't, I know that Knitters Review, I think, has a list of retreats, but they certainly don't have all of them. It's a shame that there isn't like one place where you can see all of them. There's like knitting cruises, but each sort of, like Anne and Karla do some. I noticed that Laura Nelken has one with Barcelona knits, but each one seems to be kind of like, I guess Knitters Review has quite a few, but they definitely don't have all of them. And so I didn't even know about the Isager one until it was already over. And I don't even know how I would know about if and when there is a next one coming up, to be on a newsletter or whatever. Anyway, all that to say, I am keen to do one. So I actually just emailed Myak and said, well, look, can I go on the wait list for the Sari Nordlund one? It's really expensive. But I thought, it's 4 days. So even if a per day cost is pretty high, it's a pretty short one. And I was wanting to do a trip to Europe next year as part of my long service leave. Anyway, Myak got back to me and said, actually, they did have a spot available. And so I talked to my husband about it, and I booked it. So I'm going to the Myak retreat in Venice, April the 19th to the 23rd with my husband. So he's obviously the non-knitter partner, but obviously Venice is a lovely area, and we plan to do a bit of a holiday, like a 2-week holiday before it, and then the retreat. So we're going to go to Croatia and probably also to Budapest. So we'll go there, and my dad, he's passed away now, but he was Croatian, and I haven't been since I was a little kid. So, and my mum and my aunt have been before, and they're going again right around the same time. I think they've been twice already, and they want to go back because they loved it so much. So I'm excited to see it again as an adult and to travel around a little bit. So my husband and I are going to do that for a couple of weeks and then go to Venice. But maybe depending on timing, how much time we have, go to Milan, a little bit of northern Italy. I've never been to Milan before, or to the northern, like the Lake District there. So many exciting plans, and I'm going to take some long service leave. So this has become this is a big trip for me. I'm going to take some long service leave and see a friend in the Czech Republic. He lives in Český Krumlov, So I'll visit him and his family there. I also have a friend who lives in Cologne. She lived here in Sydney for a really long time. Our elder daughters, her daughter and my elder daughter Mia, were born on the same day. So I'll visit her in Cologne. I have another friend who lives in London. So I'll be visiting her as well. So it's a travel trip, but it's also visiting friends that I haven't seen some I haven't seen in many, many years. So I'm so excited. I don't feel like at the moment I've still got a lot of work to do, so I don't have a lot of time to kind of put energy into planning it. It's obviously around April next year, but I definitely need to get my flights booked because we're leaving around Easter, which is a busy time. But in terms of length of time I'm going to be away, I'm not sure. Like for Australians, we have this tendency to book for really long times because everything is so far and it's expensive to travel. But then I also do get a bit homesick and miss being at home. But if I'm visiting friends, that will be, my husband will have to come back to Australia, back to work, but I'll have my long service leave to take a little bit of extra time, visit some friends, do a little bit of travel, visit some yarn stores. I'm beyond excited. It's so wonderful. And I'm hoping that this will be a bit of a start of like a bit more travel for the next few years, where I've got a bit of a sweet spot of time where I've got some long service leave for school. All my children have finished high school, but I don't have any grandchildren yet. So it's kind of like that little window of time. I don't know if and when I'll have grandchildren, but I'm hoping. So, but where I'm not sort of, I don't know. Anyway, it's just, I'm very, very excited. The nice thing about a retreat is it kind of anchors the trip. Like those dates are fixed, I can work the other stuff around that. So anyway, that's my plans. That's what has caught my eye is definitely knitting retreats. And it's just going to be so much fun planning and all of that kind of stuff coming up. So anyway, I don't want to go on and on about that. That's it for what has caught my eye. I've been too busy to be looking at patterns and things, and I guess I've got quite a lot of plans in terms of what I want to knit at the moment anyway. So I'm just going to move on to a little sewing segment. This actually isn't my segment. This is my daughter Alex and Paul's segment. I'm just going to pop this in here. They've been sewing on their Babylon leather bags that were sent to us recently. And I'm still working on my first bag. Alex has just about finished her third. And Paul is making really good progress on his second. So I'm just going to pop some footage of them in here now.
Hi guys, this is me and my dad.
Hi.
We're taking over Mum's podcast with our bags. Do you want to show what you've been working on?
Sure. Hi everyone, I'm Paul. So I've got a brown business bag.
Mum will attach a photo right
There.
That's where the photo will be.
Cool. All right. So I've had to sew a couple pieces together. This one's much more complicated than my, what do you call
Crossbody bag.
My crossbody.
Yeah.
Everybody loves a crossbody bag. So apparently it's two-toned, at least I hope it is. So I've sewn these bits together and I've sewn both of those, which is pretty easy. I mean, it was kind of just straight across. And one good thing is that I am kind of able to do stuff on myself.
You can thread the needle now.
I can thread the needle, which is a big win. And I can backstitch, although I've needed help a couple times getting that right. Yes, from her. And then the other bits I've done is this. This was quite cool. Just adding sort of these little corner bits on here, which were separate pieces, and then this is a separate piece here as well, and having to put those on. And again, on both sides, I've got 4 of those. I got strings
You
hanging.
got loose threads.
I got loose threads because someone keeps taking the lighter away from the tools pile.
And into my room.
And into her room, and you'll see why in a minute because she's almost done. And so the next bit I've got is, I think, attaching this or something. Yeah, this. attaching this with this or something like that, and actually making the pocket bit, which I'm a little bit nervous about, but that's okay. I've figured it out this far, and I'm sure I'll figure it out. What's next?
Yep. So my turn.
You go.
Okay. So I have the Crocodile Kelly bag.
That's my shirt.
And Mum said that we had to make a video before I finish it because I am almost done. I've attached this on. I've done the side panels. I've sewed the handle and sewed the handle on. And this bit's quite cool. So this little strap here like goes through these holes, and then so the bag looks like this. And so I still have a bit more to do around the top, and obviously I have the other.
And there's a little hole on the side.
It wouldn't work very well as a bag right now. And I have this, but I've done handle. I've sewed this onto this. I feel like I've done more. Oh yeah, and I've done all the bottom, and I've done the sewn the hard bit of the bottom. I don't know what that's called.
So one of the things I really enjoyed about this, the last one we did, was doing it as a family. And Alex has been so gung-ho on this bag that she's leaving us in the dust a bit. But at least she's here to help me when I screw up.
Yeah. And yeah, I can do it 3 hours at a time, straight. No breaks. Because it's really fun. I mean, it means I enjoy it, and this is cool. See? I only just figured this out now. But when it's turned like that, oh, it's not opening. And then if you open it, wow, it opens. Pretty high tech. And then up in my room, I have side pocket, like the inner side pocket that I've done. And the other side panel, I've done the embroidery on it. And I'm just waiting to sew that on. And I've done little decorative-y thingies as well.
So when will you be done?
Tonight. I don't know. I mean, I'm working Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. So, and today's Monday.
Yeah,
so
tonight.
Maybe, we'll see. But yeah, really enjoying it. Dad's really enjoying it as well. Question mark?
Yeah, no, I am. I'm doing it, little bits here and there when I have some time. And yeah, it's nice to see when a couple pieces come together and it looking like it's kind of supposed to. Yeah.
And we went to the cafe the other day.
I did. I took it to the cafe with me, and I was
sewing at the cafe
while I was having breakfast.
Yeah.
And Alex was very embarrassed.
A little bit. But yeah, anyway, that's all.
All right.
You can have Mum back now.
All right.
If she's going in after this video. But yeah, bye.
See ya.
So they're really enjoying making their bags, and I plan to get back to mine. Hopefully now that my exams are written, I'll try and get back to mine this weekend. Last weekend I was teaching at the yarn shop, and so when I've got a lot of commitments on the weekend, whether it's writing exams or teaching, I just don't have as much time for sewing. I tend to do that on the weekend, but I've got I don't have anything on this Saturday, so hopefully I'll be doing some sewing this Saturday, and I'll be able to do some. My husband's bag still has quite a bit to go, so I'll be able to do some sewing with him, and if Mia's got some free time, she might join us as well. Alex has already finished her bag, so we'll do a little segment soon where she gets to show off her finished bag. So that's pretty much it for the podcast this week. Just very quick personal stuff. I've been doing Vlogmas. I'm sure you've seen that. If that's not your cup of tea, please just feel free to skip those. They're basically just what I'm wearing that day. And I was sort of showing off my works in progress as well, but I kind of think that's better saved for these, every 2 weeks. Otherwise, it's, you don't need to see that I knit 3 rows on this and 2 rows on that. So it's basically just at least till the end of the month what I'm wearing that day, trying to think about wearing things that I've made, and also pulling out some stuff from that I made earlier, maybe even, a decade ago, and if I haven't worn it in a while, giving it some life. So yeah, other than that, I mentioned before, I've got a big presentation on the 10th of June. I think I mentioned it before. Anyway, if I didn't, I've got a big a Zoom presentation, like a 2.5 hour one for my actual job as a maths teacher, where I'm presenting to other teachers. I do like a presentation on teaching calculus, and I've done it the last 2 years. This will be my 3rd year doing it, but we have a new syllabus starting next year. Calculus itself doesn't really change, but there's often just little changes. You know, if there's a few changes in the syllabus, you need to highlight that. So I do have to make some changes to that presentation. So that's going to keep me pretty busy until the 10th of June. So, but there'll always be a little bit of time for knitting here and there and a bit of sewing here and there as well. But that's kind of a big thing that's coming up for me. And yeah, I think that's kind of it. Probably I'll be, even though I've been enjoying the Me Made May, it will be probably a nice break for me to not be doing these daily recordings. Although it is quite nice to do. It's definitely easier when it's just a quick sort of 3 or 4 minute what I'm wearing that day. So this is what I'm wearing. Tomorrow I probably may not even do one, because on Fridays I wear a sports uniform. So, you know, I didn't make my sports uniform. That is definitely not a me made. But I do usually wear like a shawl or something. So, and some socks. So maybe I'll do just a quick one on that tomorrow. Yep. Anyway, that's it for now. If you're still here at the end, thanks for being here. And yep, I'll be finishing up the Me Made May on the 31st of May, and I'll be doing just another like regular recording in 2 weeks from now. So yeah, thanks for watching, and if these are the only ones you're watching, I'll see you in a couple of weeks. Otherwise, I'll see you tomorrow for what I'm wearing.